Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, OP, deeply in love with his wife, faces a heartbreaking betrayal. Despite their seemingly perfect life, suspicions arose due to her secretive behavior. Eventually, explicit messages and images exchanged with her college professor were discovered. OP confronted her, exposed the affair, and initiated divorce proceedings, refusing to reconcile despite her pleas for forgiveness. Now let's get into the story. A decade ago, a 43 male stood at the altar, head over heels in love with my soon-to-be wife 40 female. As soon as we met, we fell for each other. We never wanted to be away from each other, and we both knew almost right away that we had finally found the person we were meant to be with. We only dated for 6 months before we eloped together. Our lives had been amazing since then. Both of our careers took off, we had 2 children together, and we bought a wonderful home in the suburbs. We had the picture-perfect life. That is until it came crumbling down in front of us. She and I had always been transparent about the things going on in our personal lives, though we cherished our time apart to pursue our own personal interests. She had always been interested in things like pottery, art, and music, whereas I was pursuing a side hustle of making my own furniture. At the end of every day, we would climb into bed and tell each other what we did to fill the other in. In hindsight, she had left a lot of information out about what she was doing. It didn't strike me at the time, but when I would ask her about what she did, she would be vague compared to how she used to be, where she used to give me every detail of the pottery class she was taking. She was only telling me that they made pinch pots or they glazed the ceramics. She ended up taking a course at the local community college for business marketing, because she and I had long been talking about creating our own home goods line. I would make the furniture, and she would make decor, vases, glassware, etc. This class was something that I was also very interested in because of the prospect of it helping us later down the line. When I asked her for some of the details and to share some of the notes she had, she would get somewhat defensive and tell me that I didn't trust that she was doing a good enough job taking the course. That led to a huge argument between us where she told me that I treated her like a child sometimes. I genuinely didn't know what she was talking about, but I promised her that I would try to work on whatever it was making me act that way. One thing that I did notice, but I didn't think much about, was she would get phone calls and excuse herself to answer them. Sometimes she would get text messages, and she would tilt her phone away from me or lay down on the couch in the opposite direction so I couldn't see what she was texting. Not that I normally peered over her shoulder to read what it was, but it was the extra effort to hide it that was a clear sign of something wrong. I just wish that I'd realized that at the time. It all came to a head when my wife rushed into the shower after spilling coffee all over herself one morning. She was upset and frustrated and worried about being late for work, so she didn't bring her phone in like she normally did. Normally, she would bring it in and play music from the speaker while she showered. She left it sitting on the kitchen table, and I didn't think anything of it. Until a call came through from her professor, I was very curious about why he was calling her. Granted, it had been years since I've been in college, but when I was in school, if a professor needed to get in contact with us, they would email us. The phone call ended, and I let my curiosity get the better of me. I opened up her phone while she was still in the shower and looked at their contact history. There had been dozens of calls between the both of them, some lasting as long as 45 minutes. Some were video calls too. Immediately, I had a terrible feeling about what I would find in the text messages, but despite my better judgment, I opened them anyway. They had both been exchanging explicit, graphic text messages between each other alongside pictures. My heart shattered when I saw everything. At the time, that was the first sign of anything going on that I picked up on. I was completely blindsided by the news. How could my wife have done that to me? How could she have betrayed our entire family? I could still hear the shower running, but I knew I only had a few minutes to figure out what I wanted to do with that information. At the very least, I know I wanted to get him fired. If I confronted my wife about it right then, she likely would have deleted the evidence, and I would have had nothing to show the school. I ended up screenshotting some of the more explicit parts, as well as some of the pictures they had exchanged, then texted them to myself. After I did that, I deleted the screenshots and the text messages between us. Before my wife got out of the shower, I yelled through the door that I had to leave to go into work a little bit early. I simply could not look at her after what I saw. I ended up taking the day off work and spending it near the docks watching the seagulls over the water. During that time, I figured out how I wanted to go about this. My wife had been dying to get all of our friends and some of our family together for a potluck dinner, so I decided to make that happen. Most of our friends were people that we knew through my work, and my wife was very close to my sister and her husband. I knew if I wanted to hurt her back, it would be by tarnishing her relationships with these people. On the day of the dinner, I scheduled a meeting with the dean of the college my wife had been taking the course. While I was there, I showed her all of the details about how a professor was sleeping with a student and exchanging very inappropriate messages. I showed her the evidence, and the dean made it seem like this wasn't the first time. There had been a complaint about that specific professor. She promised to make sure the proper actions were taken to terminate him this time. When the potluck eventually rolled around and all of our friends walked into our home with their dishes, everything seemed normal. I had planned on making a toast to everyone, then telling them about the impending divorce between my wife and I. But Bafate had another plan in mind. The professor stormed over to the house, banging on the door. I answered it, and he pushed past me and rushed over to my wife to yell at her. He demanded to know why she told the dean about their relationship. Everyone else in the room watched completely stunned. I spoke up and told him that I was the one who told the dean. My wife looked at me in complete shock. I told her that I found her text messages, and the dinner was my official announcement of our separation. The professor was so upset with me for costing him his job that he lunged across the table at me to attack. I am much larger than him. I work out regularly, so I was able to subdue him quite easily. However, I was definitely keen on pressing charges on top of getting him fired. In the end, my wife practically begged for my forgiveness because she realized how crazy the professor was. However, I had absolutely no interest in forgiving her. For our children's sake, I would be amicable and try to make sure the divorce wasn't messy, but there is no chance she and I will be together again. Today's second story. In this story, Opie falls deeply in love with Angel. Their seemingly perfect marriage abruptly shatters when he discovers her affair with his best friend, Rick. In a calculated move, he exposes their deceit in front of Angel's family, leading to a bitter divorce. Despite the betrayal, he finds solace in rebuilding his life and strengthening bonds with his father, harboring deep resentment towards Angel. Now let's get into the story. Before I met Angel, I was not much of a relationship person. I just loved to have fun and satisfy my needs, and that was it. I was terrified of being in a relationship with the wrong woman, especially after everything that happened between my parents and what my father had told me about women. But when Angel came into my life, she ticked all the boxes, and everything seemed right with her. While we were friends, I didn't see one flaw with Angel. I guess it was because I fell in love with her sooner than I imagined, or I was blinded in love. After a few months of being friends, I asked Angel out, and she said yes. We were already so close at this point, and we were inseparable. Her parents knew we were a thing, even when we were not officially dating, and they were only waiting for Angel to break the news to them. When she finally did, they were so happy, and I was even invited for dinner to celebrate our relationship. A year and 6 months after Angel and I dated, I popped the question, and she said yes. I was confident she was the one for me, and I didn't think of spending my life with anyone else. After we married, I rented a bigger apartment, and we moved in together like a couple. I didn't want children because I had seen how so many couples had changed after their first child. Except for being with my father as I grew up, no one else made me as happy as Angel did. We did everything together, and we spent a lot of time with each other. The only time we were not alone was when we were having dinner with my dad, her parents, or our best friends. Meanwhile, My dad gradually accepted Angel after I persuaded him to at least give her a chance, and it worked. On the other hand, our friendship bonds grew stronger. My best friend and I still hung out regularly. I didn't want to be the kind of friend who would abandon his best friend just because I was married, and I tried as much as possible to make time for him. I believed it was good since he and Angel got along well, and I didn't think spending it would be a problem one day. Throughout the 4 years of our marriage, it was bliss, love, respect, and intimacy. We didn't lack anything, were always happy, and both played roles in our marriage. I would not have believed it if anyone had told me that my Angel was having an affair behind me. Well, I saw things for myself, and that's when I realized that she had been playing me all along. One evening after Angel and I had dinner, and we got intimate, she went to bed early because she had been complaining of tiredness the whole evening. I didn't join her in bed because I wanted to watch her murder mystery program I always watched every night. Later that night, I went to bed, but I was struggling with sleep and didn't want to go to the living room to get my phone. If not, I would surf the internet till 3 or 4 in the morning. I left my phone in the living room every night to discipline myself. After I struggled for minutes, I decided to watch a couple of YouTube videos on Angel's phone, and in the middle of the second video I watched, a WhatsApp message popped on her screen from Rick, my best friend. I didn't know it was Rick initially because she saved his number as R and a love emoji. He must have seen her online and thought she was the one. Out of curiosity, I opened the message and it appeared like they were only chatting for the first time that day. Their previous messages were cleared and I felt that was odd. Just as I was trying to wrap my head around what was happening, Rick sent her a photo. The kind of photo you could only view once. When I opened it, it was a picture of his private part. The picture also said, "Think about this until we meet again." I knew what was happening at that point, but I believed I was either dreaming or having a nightmare. It turned out that Angel and Rick were having an affair this whole time, and I didn't have the slightest idea. We always hung out as a group, and I thought their kindness to each other was because we were all like family. To show my shock, I went to the bathroom and washed my face to be sure of why I had seen. But everything was 100% real. That night, I had several ideas running through my head. I wanted to silently hurt my wife for what she had done, but I didn't plan on spending the rest of my life in prison because of a cheating woman. So I thought of something, and an idea popped. I continued to chat with Rick like I was my wife, and I asked if he would love us to hang out and eat at a particular restaurant the next day at a particular time, and he agreed. I even asked him to wear something provocative for me, and he assured me that he would wear something that would set Angel's body on fire. He thought he was chatting with Angel and didn't know it was me. As usual, at the end of the conversation, he reminded Angel to clear the chat so I would not see it, and I did. The following day when I woke up, I acted like everything was fine, and I told Angel I wanted to have dinner with her family later that evening. So she phoned her parents and notified them about the dinner. Later that evening, I told Angel I wanted to see Angel, and I did. Me, Angel, and her parents were there 10 minutes earlier than the time I told Rick, and our food were not even served when Rick came. Well, let's say he was shocked to see me and Angel's family, and Angel was surprised to see him there. I still pretended everything was good and asked him to join us. I waited for the food to be served, and just as we started eating, I asked questions that made Rick and Angel uncomfortable. I knew they would play innocent, so I stopped beating around the bush and exposed everything they had been doing to Angel's parents. Rick couldn't say a word and couldn't even look me in the eye. He just left. As for Angel, she looked like a panda because her mascara melted due to her tears and gave her a hideous look. She cried and begged and even blamed Rick for manipulating her. There, and then I told her it was over between us, and she could only come to take her stuff from my house. Then I left. She made a scene by crying and running after me at the restaurant, but I was not falling for any of that. I knew her parents would try to come and beg me, and when they did, I respectfully asked them to leave my house. When they refused, I kicked them out. Angel refused to come and take her stuff because she believed her parents could beg me to forgive her, so they ended up going with her stuff that day. We eventually divorced, and I cut ties with her and my best friend, including her family. I heard that her father stopped speaking to her and refused for her to move into their house while we were going through our divorce. I also blocked their lines from calling me, and I blocked Angel and Rick on all our mutual social media platforms. I hate to admit that my dad was right about women, but he felt terrible that I had to hurt that way. We divorced in 2020, and it's been almost 3 years now. I still detest her for wasting 6 years of my life, and I hope she gets dumped by every man she loves in all her life. Right now, I'm focusing more on what makes me happy and spending more time with my dad. I still wish I never met her.